Welcome back, and there's been a lot of talk about the fourth industrial revolution, and it comes with a whole number of opportunities as well as challenges. I'm joined by Marieme Jammme, the CEO and founder of I Am the Code. The movement garners support from governmental stakeholders as well as civil society to assist in teaching young women how to code and solve problems creatively through science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics, entrepreneurship, and design. And Marieme, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I Am the Code, very interesting movement that you've started around the world, and it looks like it's growing in support from around the country. Tell me a little bit more about this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on your show. So I Am the Code started really out of frustration and also out of the need to really change our continent. So I started in 2016 at the United Nations. It was recognized by world leaders as one of the biggest movements that we need to follow now. So the aim is really to teach 1 million women and girls how to code. Africa needs coders. We need massive coders. We have 52 industries untapped with skills. Technological skills. We have coders in our continent, but I think we need more, people who are skilled, digitally skilled, to be able to address those issues. So I started up, especially for women and girls from marginalized communities, and how we can give them a chance to participate on the fourth industrial revolution, as you said. But how can we make sure that they're not forgotten, they're not left behind? And so we're now in 65 countries, and so far I've taught 15,000 girls how to code, and I'm in South Africa to do the same.
All right, and I've heard that there's a hackathon that's taking place. I mean, how do these hackathons work, and how do they assist in your work of running the campaign?
The hackathons are really catalyst events. They are really catalyst events based on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. As you know, in 2015, 193 leaders gathered at the United Nations to ratify the goals, including your country, South Africa. But I think after that, there was a lack of implementation issues, but also lack of big goal for Africa. What can we do as a continent by 2030? And people are lacking initiatives. And then I started up because I just thought that if we get 1 million women and girls to learn how to code through hackathons, meaning the 2 days events where you get young women and girls to decode the United Nations global goals, understand them. For example, climate change issues, gender equality, fighting corruption, or even, goal number 1, how do you eradicate poverty? But how do you use technology to make sure that these goals are being, Africans have got their voices, but also how do you integrate young women and girls to do that? So I put people together for 2 days. I bring mentors, companies, girls from marginalized communities to sit down and have a conversation. And by the time on the second day, amazing solutions are built. From China to Argentina, from Japan, everywhere. We've been in 65 countries, 167 events has been organized. But it's amazing the solution that has been built to advance the Sustainable Development Goals. And this year in September, we're going to go back to United Nations. And so the hackathons are so important. But we need to give young women and girls. When we did the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, we didn't have the marginalized communities involved. But now with the global goals, all of us can get involved. And I think that's why I Am the Code is getting this popularity, because young girls can decide how to eradicate poverty, how to end the pollution.
But the campaign is very important, and your initiative is to be commended. But the state or governments play a critical role in making sure that there's good enough take-up and that these become sustained or sustainable programs.
Absolutely.
So from your experience and observation, how have the governments come to the party? What is the state of training as well as education around programming and coding in the developing countries in particular?
To be honest, it hasn't been great, especially in our continent. But also, we have coding programs across the continent. But what we don't have is we don't have coding programs linked to global goals or linked to global issues. If you want to eradicate climate change, you need to have people who understand how to, for example, understand AI, and, for example, people who can input the data. And so we need to find people who can actually code languages, coding solutions, rather than taking them outside of our continent or buying it from other people. So I think the government need to start very quickly, very urgently, start teaching our people how to code and how to build a solution related to the SDGs.
We're talking about coding as if everybody knows what we're talking about. Right now, I'm stepping back and saying, let's let each other in on the secret. You see, if somebody's watching, listening, and say, coding? Okay, is it a new language or is it a new subject? What exactly do you mean? What are you talking about when you're talking coding?
It's a very exciting language, but I think what coding means is how do you talk to computers. But I think for us as a continent, it means how do you build the solutions? How do you really build a technological solution that will address our industries? That's what coding means. So if you get coders and developers in the room, what sort of language they can use to develop the industry? For example, where do we find the AI guys, artificial intelligence people? How do we find Java coders, Python coders? How do you find C++ coders? How do you find mathematicians in the continent who can address these issues? And so I think that's what I mean. For us, it's mainly digital literacy, not just coding. But how do you get Africans to become digitally intelligent?
That's it, yeah. I suppose if you put it, on that kind of platform of digital literacy,
absolutely,
then expressing itself through coding, that's essentially what we...
You're absolutely right. And getting the skills, how do you make sure that we have got the skills we need in the continent to address these issues? That's what we mean.
But now, this started a few years back, 3-4 years back, and it was born out of your life experiences as well, right? Absolutely. If you can tell me about your personal journey, which, it's got a tinge of tragedy and sadness in it, but also a lot of inspiration. And that's the thing that made me want to talk to you. So let me hear what Mariam has got to tell me.
But you are right. I mean, the reason why I am the codist is this, I'm passionate about it, because I didn't go to school myself. So I've never sat in a classroom. I came from a very broken background as a child, and we were abandoned as children, my twin brother and I. And when I was 13 years old, I was trafficked from my country, Senegal, to France. And so I had a very tumultuous childhood, living in deep poverty. So I understand young women and girls today who are living in those parts of the world who have no dreams and have no future, have no chance, have no access. And every single day they're hoping tomorrow will get better. And then I think I was that sort of that young girl who wanted to do well. I didn't have a mom and dad to support me. I didn't have a network. I didn't have money. I didn't have anything. I was in the hand of the system. And then I think that's why I wanted to today to give back to people. I'm now in a position of power. I was nominated by world leaders around the world. I won so many awards, but it's not enough. I can't just keep my accolade for myself.
People will tell you, though, that the opportunities are not there because, especially again in the developing countries, that includes South Africa for that matter, the traditional old jobs are the ones that people are looking for and are going by what they're told by governments, by educational institutions, and even the private sector itself, that your ambitions must be determined by what used to be the case in the past.
That's true.
But this digital literacy that you're talking about has given birth to a new economy, generally referred to as the fourth industrial revolution, but it is a real economy now, the gig economy.
The gig economy,
tell me a bit more about that.
The gig economy is fantastic for people who didn't go to school, people like us, or people who don't have the traditional education. Because all you need is have a computer, learn how to code, sit at home, and you can build a website. We have girls right now in Afghanistan, in refugee camps, building solutions for people in New York and the UK. And I think that's what we need to understand about technology. Technology has no race, has no gender, has no class. It's for unusual people and leapfrogging. Africa itself, our continent, is leapfrogging. We got Chinese people. We're teaching. I am the code is going to China to teach girls how to code. And so I think with technology, we need to really change our mindset and say, what do we want to do in the next 10 years? In 2030, where do we want to be as a continent? So we can't forget the 75 million young people in South Africa who can't get jobs. How about if we start giving them digital skills, giving them access, free content? Education is very expensive, but I think we can do this with the government here, and we can really help people to get free content. When you are poor, you don't have access to books, you don't have access to libraries, you don't have access to content, and it costs money. If you don't have, if your primary mission is to go and find the food and go to get something to eat, you don't want to think about libraries and coding. But we are offering free courses because I know personally from my experience that the library in where I live in the southeast of England gave me access to information. Information is education, and we need to start giving people free content.
Well, the opportunities are there for the individuals, right, that take up coding and learn a bit more or become digitally literate. But then, how do you fit in, if you are such an individual, in the local economy? I mean, do you make any contribution? How do, maybe unpack the gig economy and localize it for me, in terms of how people get paid and how they get to participate in the the country's local economies?
I mean, the gig economy is really good because let's imagine a young South African learn, for example, Java or Python, or he's a UX designer, people who design a back end and a front end. So you have a back end and a front end as a website. So the back end is the most expensive part. The front end is very easy. So color creative designers. And so let's say we have a young man sitting down right now somewhere, doesn't have a job. But you can learn how to become a UX designer within 6 months. And when you learn that, you can start, becoming an entrepreneur, giving your services to companies. Africa, we need coders. And we also need people in the gig economy who can, do consultancy work. Because as a coders, you don't need to have a full-time job. You can sit home. For example, I sit home in the UK and I build a website. I review codes for companies. I build a beautiful website, change their colors. I check the bugs, for example. And all of that can create an economy because you can start getting $1,000, $1,500 a month. That's money for you. You can start contributing to the tax of your country. You can start making money, taking care of your family. But if you don't have none of those skills, you're on the street looking for jobs and committing crime, things like that. So I think we need to change also how the education system works, giving access to people. For example,
so in other words, you can empower yourself, get power into your own hands, and you don't have to go to big institutions anymore and pay a lot of money. I see you've got a toolkit of sorts there in front of you.
Yes.
And I want you to tell me a little bit more about it and how it works and the way it fits in the scheme of things.
This is a beautiful kit. As I was saying earlier, one of the biggest problems we have in the continent is access to cheap devices, but also content. And so this computer kit, has got 9 languages inside. Any child in the world growing up can learn how to code in 5 minutes. It's based on this, absolutely. And there's coffee script inside. So it's a Raspberry Pi base, and what the children do, they put it together as a Lego, and they see the result on the screen, and they start coding within 5 minutes. In Africa, one of the problems we have is that we don't have coding languages. We don't know what Java is, what Python is, what Ruby is. But with this device, you have 9 applications. Any child, wherever you are in the world, rich or poor, you can learn how to code literally in 5 minutes. So if you want to reach the 1 million women and girls how to code, the first thing we need to do is give them free content.
And this is available? You buy it? Or
it's available. It's now across the world. Over 2 million people are using it.
Yeah.
And in the content I Am the Code is offering to Africa is free. No one pays for it because I believe personally, my personal opinion is that people need to get free content.
But tell me, I mean, how would they acquire it? If
they can acquire
family
this.
wanted to buy it for their children, how do you go about that?
Usually we have digital clubs, so we organize physical clubs with companies, for example. We get sponsored by companies. They buy the devices themselves, and then they invite their staff members to mentor the women and the young women as well. So you can get this through us. We donate them. I donate some of these computers. You can also go to a digital club in your city. We're now in 65 countries. You just need to find the locations.
I'm asking the question because there might be individuals or private companies that want to buy some and donate them. So how much would that be, for instance?
I can't remember the price live, but we can negotiate. But government...
Okay, but I mean, individuals or organizations that are interested in
they can buy from us. They can go on our website, and the price on our website, they can go on our website.
And where do they go? What is this website?
www.iamthecode.org.
Yeah, so, and then they'll find these kits.
They'll find the kits there, and they can purchase them.
Marieme Jammme, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time because, within a few short years, you've leapfrogged yourself, public institutions and governments for that matter. Now with I'm the Code campaign established in 65 countries, South Africa being number 66, it shows that the initiative of an individual can indeed change the world, and I wish you very well. And I hope down the years, down the line, one day we'll say, remember that toolkit that you brought into the studio, and whose intention was to change the world, and that indeed you'd have done so. And I will be personally pleased if at least one individual this morning says, I want to be part of I'm the Code myself. Thank you very much for having been our guest. Well, that's all we had for you this morning, and thank you for joining the Modise Network, and would like to hear your comments on today's content. Remember the hashtag the Modise Network, the Modise Network, that's the hashtag. Be sure to tune in again next week, and from us, have a good day.